Hey there, StarCraft fans. We are back with a round 5 game for the novice tournament. Let's introduce the players. Starting in the top right, playing with the blue Terran pieces, we have Haymaker. And his opponent, playing with the green Zerg pieces, it's XYFusion. So we're at round 5 in this tournament, so we're expecting some good stuff from both of these players. You know, sort of pretty standard openings. I mean, Haymaker going straight into the supply depot, XYFusion going sort of Overlord and then into drones. So we've seen some good stuff from Haymaker macro wise. We've also seen some good stuff from XYFusion macro wise, and actually a very early spawning pool coming out from XY here, a 14 pool, so suggesting some early aggression coming out from the Zerg player here. Haymaker on the other side of the map is sending up those barracks, and I wouldn't be surprised if we see an SCV scout after this. After all, it is a Terran versus Zerg, so do you see the gas being tanked? Pretty standard here. All looking really good for round 5. So yeah, we'll just see what this game has in store for us. Looks like it's going to be a couple of minutes before we do see any kind of action here. The Overlord just halfway across the map. And it's always good to send this Overlord into your opponent's base straight from the get-go. I like to send mine to the top of the ramp here on Black-Pink, just sort of this area here, so you can see what your Terran opponent is placing down, and you also get a little bit of vision if he's hiding a factory here or something. But you can then park it over there, or whatever. So Haymaker is now, if we just follow this lovely little SCV across the map, sending his little boosters there with his little mining drill, coming across Black-Pink LE here. Get some information on the Zerg, and if he's paying attention to his SCV, he will see that XYFusion has gone for this hatchery at a pretty standard timing, and he won't necessarily see this spawning pool, so he may think that XY has gone for a pool first. Got the gas mining for the Zerg here, already up to 50 gas, so by the time this hatchery finishes, we should just about have enough for metabolic boost to come down. Do see that the Zerg player has a bit of a supply block here, which is not good. You don't really want to be hitting supply blocks as a Zerg this early into the game. Haymaker's SCV is just parked on the edge of the creep here, so XY will be able to send his queen over here to try and clean up this SCV, and it looks like it is going to die. The SCV microing around Haymaker, really nice micro on that SCV, try and get a little bit of value out of him. He's only got 5 HP, and he does unfortunately go down as the queen gets back onto creep there. On the other side of the map, we see that the Overlord for XYFusion is about to come in. He's going for the back corner here, and I do like that because you're going to spot any sort of hidden tech from your opponent. So as a Terran player, if you want to stop this Overlord, you can pump out your first Marine from here and just plonk this Marine here or here, and you can see this Overlord coming in for the scout, and you can deny it. We do see a very quick engineering bay actually coming up for Haymaker, going straight for barracks, oh well, not even barracks factory CC, so a quick tech lab as well, researching stims. So I think we're going to see probably some +1/+1 marine push, maybe some marine marauder pushing going in a couple of minutes time. Yeah, we do indeed see that +1 armor coming out and a marauder coming out of this barracks with the tech lab researching stim. It looks like Haymaker has actually sent this little hit squad of marines to deny this Overlord here, although I do believe XYFusion, yeah, he will know about this engineering bay. So I mean, what do you know as a Zerg player when you see this engineering bay this early into the game? Well, you can kind of assume that it's going to be some kind of early game aggression, so you want to prep yourself up, maybe sit on 2 bases, grab yourself a Roach Warren, your own Evo chamber so you can match the upgrades that your opponent has, or you can go for expand, and if you're feeling confident enough in yourself, you can just try and hold on with a handful of units. I do see an infestation pit coming down here for the Zerg player, so that actually suggests to me that we're going to see a very early hive, because we have seen this very early layer off of a 2 base. So what's going on here? We do see roaches, so it might just be potentially going in for like triple upgrades or something, but I don't know, it seems a bit weird to go for a layer, the hive this early on, although it has been cancelled. That's a bit odd there. Not sure about that. Yeah, a bit weird. It is started back up again, so maybe that was a misclick, unfortunately, there. So XYFusion losing a bit of gas. He is not hurting for minerals at all. Does probably want to have a look for a 3rd base here. Meanwhile, the Terrans just kind of set back. There's been no aggression so far from the Zerg player. So I would have really liked to see some Lings have a little poke at this natural, and you would see Haymaker's army. Haymaker's got a nice little standing force here, so potentially doesn't want to move out just yet. I would say when this medevac comes out, you'll be looking to maybe grab a few of these Marines and take a look over at the other side of the map, see what your opponent's got. This siege tank probably wants to be sieged up here, or maybe on the high ground over here where it can't be hurt. But, you know, if your Zerg opponent isn't being aggressive, then you don't need to be aggressive yourself, do you? Do you see this nice Marine scout confirming that there has been no third base taken by the Zerg player here? And that's really good news for the Terran, because he's going to be really ahead economically. And if I have a look at the income tab, I do see that. I see that Haymaker has twice as much gas income and pretty much even mineral income, but we have just had some mules drop in, so that might change very shortly. Even more barracks with a reactor coming down here. We're going to have 3 barracks going up into 3 barracks double factory. So even a 4th barracks coming out here. So really nice. Haymaker keeping his spending low and his production on point here. And at the moment he's got just slightly a smaller army than XYFusion. But XYFusion's army is mostly Lings. Haymaker has a nice variety of units here. He's got the siege tank, the marauder and the marines. And more importantly, his units have upgrades. Whilst XYFusion has the metabolic boost on creep, that's great. Off creep, also pretty good upgrade. But it does mean that the Marines with +1 armor are going to be able to take an extra hit and therefore kill more Lings. Really like the use of the energy on these orbital commands here. Keeping the energy really low, dropping mules on the mineral line. This one, unfortunately, caster's curse, I say this, and this mule has accidentally been missed on that mineral patch. But no worries there. Haymaker expanding to his 3rd base. Probably looking to push out here. Really quite almost a macro focused game without the macro, this one. XYFusion also taking his 3rd base. I don't think he had any information about this, so I think that is just a coincidence there. Haymaker has unfortunately hit a bit of a supply block, so he's building another, oh, not a supply depot but an armory, so maybe looking for some upgrades on his siege tanks before he pushes out. +1 weapons is about to finish up in this engineering bay, and I would really like to see Haymaker, do exactly what he is doing here. Just move across and get that timing done. So what you really want to do in StarCraft is try and time your upgrades with the time you move out. So there's the scan confirming what's at the natural, the amount of army. We see a handful of Ravengers, some Lings, and actually I wouldn't be too scared of this if I was the Terran. I could bait this Zerg army out into the siege tank fire and clean it up quite easily. Ah, we do see the Ultralisk cabin from the Zerg player, so this means that Ultras are going to be on the production tab, and the first one has been in production for some time now, so we're about to see it pop out here. These are monstrosities, huge creatures with massive armour. I can't actually even see it in this interface, but I believe they have 6 armour and 7 with their carapace upgrade from the Ultra cabin. So these are going to take Marines about just a lot of time to kill, to be honest, because the Marine damage is just going to be significantly reduced. And Ultras have a ridiculous amount of HP, 500 HP, that's nearly, well, it's a third of a hatchery, and you know how long a hatchery takes to kill with a handful of Marines. It's not good. So actually, I don't think the Terran player really wants to engage here. He's not, he's just sort of sitting back, waiting for a couple more siege tanks, and I like that. It's pretty good. Do see him moving down the ramp here, and he needs to be careful. If this Ultra gets anywhere near his Marine units, they're just going to be chomped. I like this sieging up on the low ground here, and I wouldn't be surprised to see the Marines pushing up, the medevacs providing the high ground vision that the siege tanks need, because siege tanks can shoot further than this in. This is the first big engagement. The Ultralisk on move command trying to aim down for the siege tanks, and they get stuck behind the roaches. That is an awful engagement for the Zerg player here. Does manage to take out all of the siege tank, but he loses all of his army in the process, and Haymaker is left with a nice number of Marines. The extra Ultralisk coming out now, but it is also on move command. Not good at all. Ultralisks, their major disadvantage is their speed. They are very, very slow off creep, and Stim Marines can outrun them very quickly, and that's really sad to see 2 Ultralisks there go down. Really, really good engagement there by Haymaker, even leaving a Marine in this medevac. I'm not sure if that's intentional. XYFusion unfortunately got put off here by his opponent's aggression and has misrallied these workers. And there's just not a lot on the production tab. There's just Ultras. Ultras are great units, but they need to be supported. You've got 2,000 minerals, XY. Why not just grab all of these idle lava that you have and turn them into lings? Haymaker, you're doing a pretty good job yourself for trying to stay on top of your macro while being aggressive. You've grabbed yourself a third base, you're mining from it. You're a bit oversaturated at your natural. Tiny bit saturated over it remains, so maybe just take a couple of seconds while you've got a lull in this engagement here, coming down with 3 Ultralisks, taking down all of this bio, just absolutely munching its way through there. You can see how much damage these Ultras can do if they get close to the bio units. Absolutely ludicrous, the splash damage on those cores. As I was saying, Haymaker, maybe just take about 10 seconds or so, just sort out all of your workers before you go for a bit more attacking, and then you'll notice that you'll be able to pump out even more units than you have. I say this, both players are actually flooding quite a significant amount of minerals. Gas is a real problem for both of these players, especially with the Zerg going for Ultralisks this early on. He does have 4 out on the map, and that's quite a deadly force, really, especially if your opponent's going bio. The Haymaker doesn't seem to be scared by this. He's going into the third. This Ultralisk not really paying attention, also on move command again. Not good at all. He is cleaning up some of the bio units, but the siege tank here is able to shell away at them. Supporting roaches now. The queens even being pulled. I'm not sure if that's a mistake, but nice to pull the queens. You can transfuse the ultras, keep them alive for a bit longer. And how many kills has the siege tank got? None so far. I'd like to see maybe a little bit of aggressive siege tank pushing. Maybe pop it on the high ground just here, so that you can push down with the medevac over here. Just skirt in and out, keeping the vision for the siege tanks. Load more supply depots going down for Haymaker, getting supply blocked here. So we saw the Zerg getting supply blocked earlier in the game, and late game it seems to be the Terran who's focusing on all of this aggression and losing his macro. A nice flank coming out here from XYFusion, but I kind of feel as though the siege tank sieged up here has already done its work. It's taken down all of the Ultralisks, and the Roaches are just slow without their upgrade. I don't think they have, no, they don't have speed. So the Roaches are really slow off creep and can't really keep up with the Ultralisks. Still have 3 more here, so Haymaker doing a great job at cleaning up his opponent's army, but XYFusion doing a pretty decent job at making sure that he's still got enough to just hold on. Does have 3 bases, and I think he is mining a little bit more efficiently. We do see that Haymaker has twice as many workers, so despite the oversaturation in the natural and despite the oversaturation in the main, the Terran player has a lot more, and he's just pushed in here with a nice drop to take down this third base. Really well played there, because that will put the Zerg behind really far economically. XYFusion, I think you really need to just turn all of these idle lava that you've got into a bunch of Zerglings and just run them over to this third base. This third base has got no defences at all. 8 or 9 Lings in here would absolutely eat up this mineral line and really hurt the Terran's economy. Would also force his army back and take that pressure off you so that you can macro up at home. Haymaker, I really like that you're keeping on the production. We can see a nice reinforcement line of units here going straight to his main army. That's really good, really good, really good. We do even see +2 armor. I think we do have +2 weapons already in the game, yeah? So this is pretty much, at this point, game over for the Zerg player. Haymaker timing this very nicely. He's even looking for a third that doesn't exist for the Zerg, so that's going to put a big smile on his face as he knows that this is all the Zerg player has. He kills this, he wins the game. So let's see how he takes this engagement. Will he siege up on the low ground? Will he commit here? We're not sure. He's thinking about it. He just wants the Zerg player to push him because he knows that he has the bigger army here. He doesn't think he has quite enough, but he is almost, oh, he is now double supply. So he has more than enough to just push up the ramp here and kill everything. Nice choice of the Spore Crawler here, maybe to try and take out the medevacs without losing the units. Nice little bit of turtling going on here, just moving the siege tanks from this high ground down to the low ground. Really awesome, and I wouldn't be surprised if this bio army is about to move in here and engage the Zerg. Yeah, we see a scan giving the siege tanks vision, and that does force the Zerg player down the ramp. Really not what you want to be doing. You needed to commit there, XY, but I think Haymaker has done a really good job this game at keeping the pressure on, macroing at home, and he has now taken down the Zerg's army. This game is already GG. So a couple of things that the Zerg player did talk about earlier as we watch this massacre at the Marines. What the Zerg player could have done there is made sure that all of these idle lava, I think we have probably, what do we have? Yep, so we have 11 idle lava, maybe even more, that the Marines have killed some. That could have been turned into Zerglings or more drones. And and that would have put you in a better position against this army. Haymaker, really good macro, great production of units, keeping that reinforcement going. Even now that you're in your final engagement, you've got Thor's a really high-tech unit, and there is the GG from XYFusion as he sees this massive marine army up in his base. Yeah, just maybe take a couple of seconds once you've won an engagement to sort out how many workers you've got where, because you did have a bit of an oversaturation in your gas, a bit of oversaturation in your main and your natural. But yeah, good first game, guys. GG.